Hi everybody, welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. I'm Richard. Today we got another Kami gun here. This is the Norinco Model 213. This is a Chinese copy of the Tokarev TT-33. Let's take a closer look at it. Okay, the Norinco is the North Industries Corporation from China. They just call it Norinco. The Model 213, like I said, is a copy of the Russian Tokarev Model TT-33. The Tokarev was developed by the Russians to kind of replace the aging old technology of the Nagant revolver and stuff like that. They wanted to get a little more modern firearms. Now, originally it was chambered in 7.62 by 25. But the Norinco ones, this is the civilian version that was made to be sold here in the United States. And I've read different things. Some of them said from the mid to late 80s to the early 90s they were imported in the U.S. for civilian use. Some of them said they were only imported in the early 80s, so I'm not exactly sure which one it was. But they were made by the Chinese to be sold here in the United States, and they had to add this safety on it. The Tokarev did not have a safety on it other than just the half cock. That was the only safety that was on it, but to import it into the United States, they had to add this external safety on there. It's kind of a copy or a knockoff. They've got a lot of the cues from the Browning 1903 and the 1911. So if you're familiar with the 1911, these are going to be pretty similar in the takedown to those. Let's go ahead and get this thing taken apart. Let's look at a couple things first. Like I said, it's got an external safety on it. It's got your slide lock right there. It is a 8-round magazine that's in there, and these have been made for the 9mm now, instead of the 7.62 by 25. But we'll take the magazine out. It is unloaded. Now, one of the things when you rack the slide on this, these were not made very well. This hammer, you're going to push against it, which you're going to do on any single action like this that's hammer fired. When you rack the slide, you're going to push back. It is very hard to push back on the hammer. It's a lot easier if you go ahead and pull the hammer back, and then the slide comes back pretty easy. You got your slide catch right there, and it is a slide release too. You can hit it with your thumb and drop it, and then it's cocked and ready to go. I read some things that say do not dry fire these. I guess the firing pin in there is not of the highest quality. Of course, nothing on this gun is of the highest quality, that's for sure. The machining on it is very rough, especially on the inside of it. And even the outside is not well polished or anything. This has been around for a while. This is a loaner gun, so I mean, it's like I said, they were cheap then, and they're still pretty cheap now. You can still find them on some websites online. Sort of collectible, I guess, if you're into the Soviet or communist military arms, I guess. But to take this thing apart, go ahead and cock your hammer. And this safety is really weird. It's forward for safe and back for fire. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and cock it. Go ahead and put it on safe so you don't accidentally drop the hammer while you're doing it. Go ahead and pull your slide back. Well, on the other side here, your takedown lever has a pin that goes all the way through it. And on this side, it's captured in here. This is almost like a master link on a chain. Take you something soft, plastic, or I use this little wood block here, and pull that back so you can get it unlocked from there. Pull your slide back just a tiny bit, and you can push on the back side of it there and pull that lever out. Now, when you go to pull the slide off of here, right in here is where your spring is going to be exposed. Keep your hand over that when you pull it apart, because that spring is going to want to buckle up on you. So keep it from doing that and pull the slide right off it. Take your guide rod out, push it back, pull up on it, and be careful with it. You don't want to get that spring in too much of a bind and kink it. So you've got your guide rod, your recoil spring, and everything out. And on the front here is a bushing, just like on the 1911s. Rotate it at 180 degrees, pull that out, pick your barrel up, slide it forward, and it pulls out right there. You can also take the hammer and S.C.A.R out of it. Go ahead and take your safety off, hold on to your hammer, let it come forward. You can pull this up, and this will take your hammer and S.C.A.R mechanism out of there, your spring on there for your hammers in there, and you can get in there and clean it up pretty nice. That's one nice thing about this, is there's not a whole lot of stuff in here left to clean up. You've got most of your workings right there. Put it back in, just kind of rock it in there a little bit, put it back down. Putting it back together is also tricky. Make sure your lug, there's your little toggle link right there. Go ahead and fold that forward, slide it right back in there. It'll drop down, and your locking lugs will drop down into the grooves there when you got it all the way back. Go ahead and take your guide rod and recoil spring and slide it right back in there. Pull your toggle link up, have it right up against there. This is rounded on one end, that goes up against the barrel there. Get that down inside there, and then go ahead and slide put your slide back on your receiver. Pull that hammer back again, and go ahead and lock that. And it's a little tricky to get that toggle link lined up in there just right. You can take a pin or a punch or something and get in there and make sure that's lined up. It makes it a little easier. Put your takedown pin back in there, go ahead and push it down in, and go ahead and flip it over on the other side and push that piece back forward. Again, you're going to need something to push it on there, and when it clicks into place, now you don't have to worry about that falling off. Go ahead and hold it up right there. Now this is where it gets really tricky, because you've got to get that pushed down in there and then get your barrel bushing back on there, and it's going to go on like that. You can't put it in and then get your spring down in there. It's just not enough room for that spring to go in there. So you're going to take this, push it down in there, being very careful with it, because if you slip, it's going to go flying. Get your finger out of the way the best you can. Get your bushing in there, and go ahead and rotate it. Once you've got it in there, you'll see your button there is going to be kind of cockeyed in there a little bit, but spin that around and it'll pop right back into place. Go ahead and function check it, make sure everything works, and it's all back together. A pretty easy gun, especially once you've done it a couple times, to get it apart and put back together. It's not that bad, but I'm going to take it apart one more time because I'm going to do a pretty extensive cleaning on this thing. It has been neglected for a long time. It's been sitting in this holster, which is a nice leather holster. It slides on your belt there. It's got a magazine pouch right in the front of it there, and it did come with 2 magazines. It did not come with the cleaning rod. There was a cleaning rod that would have slid right down in there. A little Sam Brown button on it there to latch it, and nice little holster for it. Anyways, I'm going to get this thing back apart, and then we'll get it out on the range with some Blazer brass, some 9mm. This is 115 grain full metal jacket stuff, and I'm only going to fire maybe 1 or 2 magazines through it, because when these things came with this one did not come with the owner's manual, but I have seen a couple of the owner's manuals, and it says the service life on this thing is about 2,000 rounds. I don't know how many rounds have been fired through this, and since it is a loaner, I'm not going to go fire a whole bunch of rounds through it because it's only got a limited lifespan, I guess. All right, everybody, we're out here on the range with the Norinco Model 213. I'm going to go ahead and get the magazines loaded up, and I'm going to put one of these little targets up there. It's a pretty cool, windy day out here today, so if I put one of the big silhouette targets up, the wind's probably just going to rip it off anyways. But we're going to get these magazines loaded up with some of this Blazer brass. And like I said, I'm only going to run a couple mags through it, and that's about it. The mags are real easy to load up. They're 8-round magazines, and they've been around for a while, so they're already loosened up, and you should not need a loading tool unless you got some really weak hands. They're going to load up pretty nicely. And once you've got them all loaded up, give them a little tap on the back there just to make sure they're seated all the way to the back. Yeah, they load really easy because that spring has been used over the years anyways. And like I said, just 2 magazines. We're going to run 16 rounds through this thing, and we're going to do probably 5 of them on this, and then the rest of them we'll do in the steel target up there because I don't have to worry about the wind blowing it away. All right, we're going to go ahead and take 5 shots at the little target up there and see how it does. Just pop the magazine in there, and like I said, this thing is, when you're pushing the slide up against the hammer, it's really difficult. You really got to do it pretty quickly. It's a lot easier if you just go ahead and take and cock the hammer and then rack it. Now one's in there and it's ready to fire, so we're going to give it a try there and see how it does on the little target. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the safety on. We'll go ahead and give it a try. All right, it did not fire, so let's go up there and take a look at that real quick. Okay, here's my 5 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, and one of them you don't get much closer to the center than that one there. It's a military firearm. It's not a marksman's firearm. It is a sidearm for protection to you know, get to your rifle. But that's acceptable accuracy for a military sidearm, and it's actually pretty good accuracy. I'm shooting at 10 yards there to this target from the Caldwell matrix, and that didn't do too bad. So let's go ahead and do 3 more shots. I'm just going to do these offhand at 7 yards and see how I can do with it. All right, I went ahead and holstered it, cocked and locked, and I'm going to go ahead and do 3 offhand shots here because that's all I've got left in there. I'm just going to take the safety off, pull the trigger, and see how I do with that. It is a difficult safety to maneuver with your thumb, with it being forward and backwards. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. Not a bad shooting gun, really. It's got kind of a weird grip angle on it. It's pretty steep, I guess. It's not laid back too much. It's still pretty comfortable, and it shoots pretty good too. Looks like I got them a little bit low and to the right on those 3, but that wasn't too bad. We're going to go ahead and get this mag changed out, and we'll take the next 8 shots at the steel target up there. Okay, so there's my steel target up there at 15 yards. We're going to go ahead and put the next magazine in it. We'll go ahead and drop the slide with the slide release on there, and then take 8 shots and see how it does. All right, I think I missed one of them on there. The slide does lock open on the last round, and it really doesn't shoot too bad. It's got a little bit of kick to it, and when the rounds are being ejected out of there, I've had a couple of them already come back and hit me in the hat there, but they kind of come out at a weird angle, come almost straight back at you. All right, guys, there it is. Just like I said, I'm only going to take the 2 magazines worth of rounds through it because it has a limited service life on it, and the owner loaned it to me to do a video on it, clean it up and everything, and I don't want to wear his gun out for him. I'll let him do that himself. But it's a pretty neat gun. They were really inexpensive, imported from China. No longer imported from China. You can't get them anymore, so the ones that are out there are the only ones that are going to be here, as far as I know anyways. But not a bad gun. Not the best anyways, but if you're looking for budget old communist military firearms, you could check one of these out. Not too bad. Anyways, if you could reach up here and hit this button to check out some of my other videos, hit this button down here to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for taking a look at the Norinco Model 213 with me.